Their traditional food everywhere you are is cachupa, and it is this stew with like beans and vegetables and I think another grain that's like common over there. But they put it the way the people would explain it to me. They would put it in a big pot, and it wasn't on the stove. It was with like firewood. Is that how you say it? And so it was like in their yard, and they just have like big stones and like firewood underneath, and it would be in the pot like all day almost. And the women every once in a while they go check on it. They like bend over and they like blow on it, and to get it going. But it is their traditional food, and to me at first I thought it was pretty bland. When I first got there, I thought everything was a little bland, and I felt everything needed a little bit of salt. And my companion told me, I think it's because you were raised, in a Hispanic culture, and they use a lot of like flavors, but you'll get used to it and you'll like it. And I did. I fell in love with the food. After a few weeks, my favorite plate was caldo de peixe. And when I would tell members that, when they would ask me, what's your favorite food here? I would say caldo de peixe, or to translate, it would be like fish soup, not soup, fish soup. And it was delicious. It would have like fish, either like chunks of tuna or I don't know what other fish they used. And it would have green bananas, like super, super green bananas put in there, and potatoes, and a little bit of like red tomato paste. And it was delicious with like a side of rice. I loved it. And everybody would be so amazed when I would say caldo de peixe, because they would say, well, sister, that's like a poor man's plate. And I would say, that's my favorite plate. I love caldo de peixe. And that's really common there. The other food there that's super delicious is camoca. And especially camoca from Fogo, from the island of Fogo. That is the best camoca you will ever get. And it's made from corn. And a lot of people will say that it tastes like burnt popcorn. A lot of the missionaries would say that. They would say, how could you like that? It tastes like burnt popcorn. And I would say, no, you have to know how to eat it right. And then you'll fall in love with it. And so I think, I saw them do it one time. It's in this big, it's made out of stone. And they would put their corn in there, and it had like a little, how would you say it? How do you call that? Like a little...
It's like a mortar and pestle. It's like a baking time, smash it.
Yeah. And they would just like grind up the corn. I don't know if the corn was grilled or if it was just like raw. I'm not sure. But it's like this brown powder. And the people there would have it with milk. And we would have it with powdered milk, powdered whole milk. Because the people there wouldn't really buy like milk from like the carton or anything. It was powdered milk. And that's how I tried it with one of my companions, and I loved it. So powdered milk, camoca, a few scoops of powdered milk, a few scoops of camoca, and sugar. And you put water and you just mix it all together and you drink it. And it was the best. And the people there would always say that camoca is super good for you, that it makes you smarter, it'll help you in school, it gives you energy. And I just love to drink it. And I would drink it all the time. Breakfast, lunch, and when I would come home, just make myself a cup of camoca. And it was delicious like that. Some sisters or some Cape Verdeans would just have it just like the powder with just sugar. And like the powdered milk, like without any water, just dry. That's how some would like to eat it as well. And what else about the food? Mango season is amazing. Mango season is not it's not so long. It's just like, I think a month and a half, maybe like 2 months. But you would get the mangoes, and when there was like plenty of them, oh, it was so cheap too. And they were just so juicy. You just like bite into it and it would just like run down like your arm. It was absolutely delicious. I loved it. Another typical food there is couscous, and it's like a very dense cornbread. It's not so sweet. I didn't find it so sweet, but I loved it. I would have to say it's pretty plain, but it's delicious. And everybody, all the missionaries, they just end up falling in love with couscous, especially when it's like warm, when it's just like barely made, and they would put like butter on it and serve it to you. And I know that others would put like vary their couscous. I tried one with cinnamon, and that was my favorite one. And so that's a typical food there as well. They eat a lot of fish, like grilled fish, and they eat a lot of feijoada as well, which is just like beans with peppers, onions, and carrots, and you would just put it all in a saucepan with a little bit of olive oil, and a cube of, what's it called, like chicken stew that they would put in there. And so that was feijoada, and I loved that as well. It was delicious. The little markets would sell juices, but you didn't really see them. At least we're like the families of people we taught. We usually didn't teach high class people. They usually, well, their middle class was, pretty. The standards weren't so very good, but they would drink Pepsi and Coke. A lot of times we were deceived because they would bring out a juice and they would offer to us, and we wouldn't drink the water. But if it was in a bottle, like store bought, we would drink that because it was a lot safer. But we had to be really careful in looking at the bottles because sometimes they reuse their bottles, their Coke bottles or their Fanta bottles. So they're bringing out to you, and they just call everything sumo or juice, even like soda. They'll just say juice. And so they would offer it to us, and so we always had to like make sure that it was like the actual thing and it wasn't just another juice that they would put in. A lot of their juices, they would just use just like the juice packets. They would sell those everywhere in every loja or market. Because that's what the women usually use. So,
in Cabo Verde, their diet is very simple. That country, like I said, it's very kind of arid in most places. Only during the rainy season they can get like a lot of crops. And so they eat a lot of rice, a lot of beans, a lot of corn. They have like 100 different recipes to use corn for. And they eat lots of fish. Fish and chicken are probably two of their main proteins. They don't get very much beef. And the fish there are spectacular. I would take any and every opportunity I could get to eat fish. They have so many different varieties that we don't get here in the States. And they cook it very simply, just, with some simple vegetables, tomatoes, onions, and they'll kind of cook that all together, and it's called caldo de peixe. And then they serve that with rice, and that's a very common Cape Verdean meal. They could eat that several times a week, and it would be normal. Usually with some beans as well. But yeah, the fish there is really great. But their food, it's not very distinct in any ways. It's not particularly spicy or sweet. It's just very simple, very healthy in the fact that it doesn't go through any treatments, any processes. It's grown. You could do a service project like helping someone like pick beans, and then they'll like make dinner for you with what you just picked, So it was good health there. They also eat a lot of ramen noodles, oddly enough. So that's a good little treat.
So I love and miss Cape Verdean food so much. The funny thing is, you never would think this, but so the national dish is kashupa, but that's hardly the most common dish. You hardly ever find that, like, usually that's like if you're going to someone's house and like they're making it with their family because it's just a big dish. The most common dish in Cape Verde is grilled chicken, rice, and French fries. So, and with the French fries, they give you ketchup and mayonnaise. so you can make your own fry sauce. It's just super funny. So like without exception, whatever island, wherever you go, there's always that plate, like the traditional plate of grilled chicken, french fries, and rice. And so get used to a lot of carbs, get used to a lot of bread. The bread, they always make it, there's no such thing as like day old bread. It's always made fresh. So good. There's like bakeries everywhere. Get used to a lot of bread and rice and beans and fish and chicken. Pretty much that constitutes like your whole life. But it's so good. I love it. And a lot of fruit. The fruit is always just so beautiful and fresh, and yeah, I love that. If the rules are the same as when I left, then it's generally discouraged to eat with members. They don't like you to do it just because sometimes people get sick. I never got sick on a mission, but that's not an excuse to break rules. So if there's a rule not to eat with members, then don't do it. But yeah, you can make some of the same things, or you could go to restaurants, and it's really nice. Actually, in my last area, we had this deal with one of the local restaurants that we'd pay them a certain amount a month, and it was a discounted amount, and we'd go there every day for lunch, and it was super good. We ate the best that I ever ate on my mission, and it was really good to have that security. You know, we didn't have to worry about always buying stuff and worrying if we had enough money at the end of the month, because you have to budget really well on your mission. There's a lot of really fun little cookies they have there and stuff that I miss, and juice, stuff like that. I love the food. There was no food that I didn't like. It was so good. Yeah.